Hello, my name's Tao and I'm going to talk about the Scorpio sign. I will only address a few things that kind of bother me about how they describe a Scorpio, which I don't quite believe, or not that I don't believe, that is somewhat true, but I think it depends on how you define certain things and how you interpret certain traits. But I wanted to give a little bit more of an understanding or debunk some things that people, I think, misunderstand about the Scorpio. First of all, I think that it's important to point out that it is a water sign, so water represents emotions, and that is the underlying force with a Scorpio essentially. I know it is painted negatively, on when people talk about the Scorpio, but I don't think we should forget that emotions is very much what a Scorpio is about, and that's what makes them move. The next thing is that it is a fixed sign, so it is a more tougher sign to, you can't really teach a Scorpio or give them advice, etc. They're a bit stubborn. It is ruled by the 8th house, which is the house of death, and this very much sums up a Scorpio because it does resonate there on the dark side of things. Death is something that a Scorpio needs to understand what is. But I will go into further depth about the whole death thing just to give a better understanding. Just explain that a little bit better, just give it a bit more justice, really. It is ruled by Mars and Pluto. Mars is the god of war and Pluto is the lord of the underworld, and that pretty much sums up a Scorpio. So if you look at god of war, think of a Scorpio like a warrior, and then look at the lord of the underworld where it does resonate there in the dark side of things, like I mentioned before. You could also refer to it as, they say the Scorpio sits in the depths of the oceans. Another thing would be people's weaknesses. When you first meet a Scorpio, they're probably most likely be able to pick out, someone's weaknesses within the first 10 or so minutes of meeting them. It is something that they normally identify with, so they can automatically, as a reflex, they would. Okay, so if you consider this world that we're living in, or life, and to understand this, we need to understand death. And that's pretty much why a Scorpio may understand a little bit more things in general. And that's because it looks at the dark side of things instantly to be able to understand what is. So how I'm going to describe a Scorpio, I want to look at or describe a Scorpio by intensity. And I use the analogy where it's like a pendulum that swings hard one way or the other. A Scorpio is very, very much black and white. It never, ever is grey. It is very one or the other. And this is something that describes every single perspective of a Scorpio. For example, if you look at the deep emotions within and the sensitive part within, and on the exterior it's very cold, it's very logical and analytical. Another thing is a Scorpio does find it a bit more difficult to express their emotions because it's always just one or the other. And this is referring to when it comes to our own emotions, it's something that we can't describe as easily. And how I explain this is, if you look at the brain hemispheres, you've got logic and language that is on the left-hand side of the brain, and on the right-hand side is where your emotions and creativity lies. If a Scorpio is only one way or the other, it's very hard for a Scorpio to, connect the two, to be able to explain, by language, their emotions, which is on the other side, because it is one or the other. So it is hard for a Scorpio to express our feelings or how we feel inside, and this comes to when we talk to someone that we do care about, and if they're going through a rough time or emotional time, it is misunderstood. And for a Scorpio, understanding is something that's very important, and if we do care about them, we want to understand as a normal reflex and as a normal process for us. So in order for us to understand, we're very black and white with how we question, the situation or whatever's happened, to be able to understand completely. And this is taken a little bit wrong where, we could come across a little bit insensitive or, inconsiderate of their feelings because we're so blunt, and we are very blunt because it's very black and white how we want to understand or need to understand. Because if we, aren't blunt and direct with at the questioning, it leaves room for interpretation, and it's not quite understanding. So people forget this when they do talk to a Scorpio, and if they're going through a rough time and they think we're being a bit too hard or too uncaring. But the thing is, people forget that we want to understand because we care about them. And if we care, we want to know what they're going through. And it may not come across the right way, but people can't. I don't think people should forget that we're only questioning because we care, and it might not be. We don't automatically do the whole emotional thing first, because we automatically do logically try to understand things, and it just comes across wrong. And I think that's that's very important when people converse with a Scorpio. They forget this, and I just hate that they paint a Scorpio as too ruthless, too blunt, too interrogating or questioning, or it's like we're doubting them, but it's not. It's because we care, and that's something that is forgotten, and I want to remind people of that. I guess if somebody's going through an emotional time, for myself, I do ask first how they want me to be, so I'm a bit more mindful of, I won't do the normal Scorpio thing. I will hold back, and I'll question whether they want me to understand or whether they want me to be a supportive friend, because I think sometimes we get in trouble because of the way we come across. And if somebody's going through an emotional time and they want someone to be supportive of them and caring of them, they don't understand. They forget that we're doing what we're doing because we care, as opposed to we're doing what we're doing because we're being just that ruthless person. And that's why I think it's painted wrong. It's just because we can't express it both at the same time. We can't do logic and emotions at the exact same time when it comes to our own emotions, and because we care about them, it's hard for us. I do want to add, though, that it is very specific. I mean, if we're detached from the situation and we're not emotional, then we can do both. It's only when it comes specifically to our own emotions inside, and if we care about the person, then it affects us, if that makes sense. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is how a Scorpio is a fixed sign. Now, you can't teach a Scorpio anything. You could tell a Scorpio and they'll listen, but most likely they'll probably have to go, look for themselves, or, get their own research and data themselves to understand it. And this is something that needs to be done before they believe or accept it completely. And that's very much a Scorpio's life. It's very much a life of lessons through experience. Even though it's a fixed sign or immovable, it's funny because the paradox with that is that it is also about transformation. So it's about transformation in general. So it is the only sign that's represented by, depending on the astrologer, but it's represented by 2 or 3 totems. You've got the first totem, which is the younger scorpion. It is represented by the actual scorpion, where if you've ever watched a video clip of a scorpion, it does wait and it attacks when it feels it's the right time. So that's how a Scorpio really is. Now, a younger Scorpio will sting to protect themselves if they feel threatened, only for self-defense, and that's the thing. If they haven't gone through lessons yet, and because they're still young, they can unfortunately then inadvertently sting themselves in that process of protecting their emotions or their sensitivity. And that's the fortunate part, but Scorpio then does learn from lessons eventually. It really depends on the other signs as well, on how fast they learn, but usually it is a lesson that they do grow. And then the second phase of a Scorpio is that of an eagle, where they say an eagle flies above and where it sees everything, understands everything, because it looks down at the world, and it only swoops to kill or attack, to feed. It's kind of like a Scorpio. And the third phase is from the depths of our own destruction, we then rise from the ashes as a phoenix. Some astrologers say it's a dove, or some don't even say there's a third phase at all. I think a Scorpio is painted very negatively, where, you know, people will hear when you say, what sign are you? And they say Scorpio, everyone's like, oh, watch out, sort of thing. And describing it as an eagle, the swooping to kill, it is there. I mean, that's how it's represented. However, I think a Scorpio holds a lot of values and morals and essentially it is a water sign, so it would go against that. We wouldn't swoop to kill. I'm not saying that all Scorpios don't. I'm sure there's Scorpios out there that are vengeful and they take the path of revenge, but I think that's that of a younger Scorpio where they don't know how to protect themselves, or they feel threatened, or I think it's just the younger Scorpio when they haven't evolved yet or have gone through enough lessons. But otherwise, our emotions don't allow us to, you know, be that mean person. But let's go back to, you know, from the depths of our own destruction, and all Scorpios do destruct. And that's, you could tell a Scorpio that if you go down this road, there is a cliff and you will fall off that cliff. Pretty much guaranteed. And a Scorpio will hear that. It's not that we don't believe you, we do, but we have to go down there and check it out and experience it and understand it for ourselves. And a Scorpio will most likely go as far as they can go. They'll be hanging off that cliff before they decide whether to go 180 and go back the opposite direction. So they take things to the limit as how far their morals and values or whoever makes them or their life experiences take them. And that's the thing, Scorpio has to go one way or the other, and it goes as far as they can. It goes full force. The pendulum does swing hard one way and then the other. And that's very much how a Scorpio understands everything. It's that they understand that it's not just about life, it's about death, to be able to understand life. And that's why there's a deeper understanding of everything. And that very much describes the intensity of a Scorpio, where everything is very deep and hard one way or the other, and is never in between, right? And that goes to back to our emotions, where our emotions run so deep, and there's a level of tolerance that we do take, or we do have. And that's because we know that we understand a lot, and we know that other people might not understand as much as we do. And this is something, well, they say that Scorpios hold grudges, and this is something that I don't think it's quite a grudge, because when we make a decision, it's very set, it's very one way or the other, so it's going to go full force that way. And people, how I describe it is the tolerance level of an average person is only so much, yet there's always a second chance. And what they fail to understand with a Scorpio, where it's only one way or the other, so there is no such thing as second chances. So when a decision's made, that's it. And because there is a higher level of tolerance, because we understand and our emotions are deep, we do accept a lot, and that tolerance level may very well be, more than someone else's second chance. Like, we've allowed for it already. We've allowed for more than that. So there is no second chance. We've already given that, essentially. So when we do feel that it's we're hanging off the cliff when it comes to certain people that we've allowed for so much already, that we do cut them off, and it is very cutthroat, and people may see it as very, brutal, that we're being mean, but they don't understand that we've accepted and we've allowed for so much already, and that's, that just because we're comparing it to one person who gives second chances, and just because we don't doesn't mean that we haven't allowed for the same, if not more. So we're only black or white, right? So, and that's the thing with the whole crazy description that they paint Scorpios. And coming back to, how much we tolerate, and we tolerate it so much more, there's got to be a balance, right? And there's got to be an outlet somehow. And people aren't like this. They're not one way and the other. And they don't recognise or see the tolerance that a Scorpio has for something. They just kind of look at us and they just, paint us for crazy. But we do need to have those outburst moments, or that rage moment where, there's got to be that moment where we let go of that, because we're going hard for tolerance, and then it will have to swing back. There needs to be a balance. It's the yin and yang to everything, you could say. And so a Scorpio could very much explode like a volcano, you could say, but it is something that needs to be done because of the balance. I think the more mature a Scorpio is, and depending on the other signs within the chart, that would depend on how much they need to explode. You've got some Scorpios that explode daily. They could be, the nicest people at work, and then because they're tolerating so much and they have to be who they need to be, and then they go home and they go nuts. I personally, as a Scorpio, probably explode once or twice, maybe under 4 times a year. So I tolerate a lot, but when I do explode, I know when it's coming. It builds up, and it could be the smallest thing that ticks me over, but I will go psycho crazy. I'm not ashamed to say that, because, hey, I tolerate so much more. Come on. But there always has to be an outlet somewhere, somehow, where we need to let go. And I don't think that this is a bad thing at all. I think it's just something that we need to understand and to accept, and to maybe manage it a little bit better. I think when a Scorpio then evolves to the third phase, you could say, when they become a more spiritual person or a higher being, if they look at meditation or whatever it is that allows them to, be balanced, I think that's something that can then be able to manage it completely better. But otherwise, the life of a Scorpio is very much about those outburst moments, because they tolerate so much more. I think it comes hand in hand, and I think that's not a bad thing at all. I think it's just something that people need to understand. Okay, the next thing I want to explain is the whole jealousy thing, how they say that a Scorpio is jealous. And I really think it depends on how you define the word jealousy. But I don't personally think we get jealous. And I'll specifically explain this part relating to myself as a Scorpio, where I don't think I get jealous as much, but I don't trust people. And if someone I care about, or my partner or whoever, is going to hang around some people, I don't get jealous that they hang around people, but I do know that people's minds are weak, and I think it's the arrogant side of the Scorpio in me, where because I understand a little bit more about people, I know that people can be easily persuaded and people's minds can be weak. And I think that especially if I haven't met the person that they're going to hang around, I don't know, I haven't sussed them out, I don't know who they are, and my insecurity lies with, the person that I care about being persuaded, or being, because there are bad people out there, and people have bad intentions, and I haven't sussed out what someone's intent is. I don't know, I get a little bit insecure, but I don't think it's defined as jealousy in the normal sense, in the typical sense. I think it's more of a protective thing, where I just don't trust people. Okay, so now about the whole manipulation thing. This is actually quite funny, because not long ago, a close friend of mine, who knows me quite well as a Scorpio, she pointed out that how manipulative I am. And to me, I was very baffled. I was just like, no, I don't think I am at all. I was pretty surprised that she would think that. But I guess, when I thought about it, I guess that because I understand people a little bit more than others, how people can understand things and how best to understand. So you may word things a specific way to for them to understand, and that in a sense is kind of manipulative for someone that does see that I'm doing that. But I think manipulation comes down to if the word itself is a little bit negative, where I think manipulation is more for personal gain, and I don't think, although I know I could, if I wanted to, I could manipulate someone for personal gain, or if I wanted them to do something or that I wanted, but I normally wouldn't, because we've got those morals and values that we hold very strong to us, that it doesn't allow us to do that. But I guess in a sense where we naturally do word things the way that somebody else might understand it better, it is in a sense very manipulative in general. So I don't believe that that's really painted correctly, because we don't do it for personal gain, and we've got too many morals and values against that, etc. And I know overall a Scorpio is painted in a very negative way, and I think it's just because it's misunderstood. And a Scorpio is very black and white, and it is about trust, and we expect people to not lie to us. We want our personal relationships to be, straightforward, meaningful. We don't like fake, false people and two-faced people. And because we want our relationships to be very simple and straightforward. And when it comes to people in general, there could be like an arrogant side to the Scorpio, you could say, where we kind of think that we're superior to them. And I guess that's the whole power thing, and we are ruled by Mars, which is the god of war, which is the control. And we want to be above others because, we've always understood a little bit more, and we being understanding a bit more is the control that allows us to, protect ourselves, essentially. It all comes back down to, our emotions, and being a water sign, it is protection. It's protecting our sensitivity, and being in control allows us to do that. And we want to understand people, and because we've always understood, and we kind of don't like it when people are, above us, or, more stronger than us. And that comes down to, because we want to be in control to protect ourselves. So when we do meet new people, we do question who they are and what they're about and what their intent is, and if we're not asking a shitload of questions, we're looking at them, we're seeing if we can, identify any falseness, if they're lying to us. And a Scorpio will see through any lies. Like, we can tell if they're lying to us, and because we don't like that. And essentially we hate people who lie because we're very straightforward ourselves. We are about truth and honesty and being straightforward. But, we ask these questions, and we stare at them, we look at them because we want to see what their intent is, and if they've, their weaknesses, or if they've got any sensitivity where, we can allow them to, because we're trying to identify that they're, not mean, they're okay, because we are essentially questioning to protect our sensitivity inside, right? So we're trying to identify with their sensitivity. So we question if they're a good person and whether we can trust them. And we will be, we'll be very specific on who we, hold dear to us. It's only a fair few that a Scorpio will be close to. But the ones that we do hold close mean the world to us because of all of that. Because we made that decision, that commitment. And it's because they're worth it in the end. But that's the main things that I wanted. There's a lot more about a Scorpio I could talk about, but those, I wanted to give a better understanding of the ones of what I've talked about today, because I think it's very misunderstood or taken the wrong way when we just look at the word alone without an explanation. Okay, and thank you.